Welcome to the Core A podcast. This week, our guest is Vicious, the commentator known for doing Capcom Cup Evo, among other things. How are you doing, Vicious?
I'm doing all right. Gerald, Kevin, it's good to see you guys. It's been, I feel like, not too long since I saw you guys in person, but I hope you guys have been doing well. Other than that, I'm big chilling.
Yeah, we're doing great out here in Korea. Are you talking out of LA right now? Is that the time difference?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm at home base for the time being. Despite how crazy some of our schedules get, this is the only time I actually get to be at home. So I am broadcasting. I usually actually have a green screen up behind me, so this is the first time anyone's really like seen my room or my bed ever.
Oh, exposed.
Okay. I feel like really.
Yeah.
There's like a different angle that I have, but it's all like my weird like Pokemon stuff. But then other than that, it's just like no one's seen behind me ever. It's always green screened up.
Okay, awesome.
Nice.
Were you always in LA, or what's your background? What do you where were you born, and where have you lived? And I guess I imagine maybe it wasn't always LA, but maybe I'm wrong.
More or less within like the San Fernando Valley, which is still technically LA County, but I've never lived in LA proper. I've been around like so many different cities. Like I've grown up in like Glendale, Burbank. I've gone to Van Nuys, Panorama City, Northridge, etc. There have been a lot of moving parts in my life as I was getting older, with my family, because we had to go from like place to place. Like surprisingly enough, we were like stable enough to stay at the same school, like growing up all the way to like adulthood, or at least like past high school and stuff like that. But no, it was a very weird kind of like moving situation with like our family's finances and stuff. We didn't have like the best kind of like background growing up, so we had to go from place to place pretty often. But it's always been in Southern California.
Okay, cool. So I guess usually we go through this with a lot of our guests, but we're very interested in kind of the origin stories of getting into fighting games, but also gaming in general. So I guess do you have a particular story with that? Do you also play PC games? Are you just strictly console, arcade rat, all of the above?
This one's easy. It's definitely all of the above. I've been so infatuated with video games for a very long time. There have been so many home videos of our family, of like my brothers and I. My mom and dad love to kind of just like do home video stuff and like film us like growing up and stuff. So a lot of that had a lot of Super Nintendo footage.
Oh yes.
There was we've grown up with like even like the regular Nintendo system. Played like Super Mario Brothers 3, and then like my first ever fighting game was like Street Fighter 2 on the SNES, the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
But like since then, man, like my brother and I have been like always kind of competitive. Not necessarily the closest, but like the one thing that brought us together was video games a lot. Like for ourselves and our friends, we would always be like hyper competitive in like shooting games and like fighting games, even puzzle games, whatever, right? So I have a pretty extensive background on almost everything. Like anything that my brother would play, I would play. Everything that I would play, my brother would play. Everything that was hot in the streets with my friends, we're like, yo, put us onto that. And
awesome.
We just went through it. But in terms of like the competitive spike, what really kind of like gave us the driving spirit was Halo.
Nice.
Halo. Okay.
We grew up. We ended up like sticking around with like Halo 1. We loved how much it was, like how innovative it was. This was our first time really playing like a shooting game, and then like all the hype was around Halo 2. We're like, yo, we got to go pro with this. So we've tried like the game battle circuit that turned into MLG, and then I came at like a weird crossroads. This is where the transition is from like shooting games to fighting games. I got exposed to the realm of fighting games in high school. A good friend of mine, Irvin Fernandez, had shown me a video of a particular Street Fighter 3 clip.
Yes.
I thought it was like the most hype thing ever.
Wow.
You guys could probably guess it.
Yes.
It was the moment that Daigo parried the hell out of Justin. I'm sorry, Justin. I love you, brother. But that skyrocketed my interest. Because I would see this cab. I would see like Third Strike cabs. I would see people play it. And I'm like, that's cool. I didn't know Street Fighter was still going like that, because I played Alpha, I played EX on like the PlayStation or whatever. Like I still played fighting games, but never to a competitive degree, right? So it came to a choice for me where I was like, do I want to continue like playing Halo 2? Because it was frustrating just ranking up at the time, playing duos, etc. But I was like, yo, we're doing game battles every week and it's frustrating. Like I need a break, right?
Yeah.
So I started picking up Third Strike, right? And then it came to a point where I'm like, yo, I'm like sucked into this game. I have to choose a path. Is it gonna be like full on shooters, or am I gonna like mess with this fighting game genre? Lo and behold, I had a really good support system that was like, yo, there's so many videos of like Japanese players. There's so many videos of like other players from the States or whatever. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna mess with this, dude. It looks way more fun. Like the crowd seems pretty damn hype, and there's a scene right next to me that I could go to that has like really top players. Apparently, it was Family Fun Arcade at the time. Like, let me mess with that. So that's pretty much what drove like my competitive spirit onward. Like after that, making that transition from like shooters to specifically Street Fighter Third Strike, I'm like, yo, like fighting games are kind of sick.
Yeah.
Going to the arcade, especially, I'm like, yo, I definitely made the right choice to skip out on Friday's class to go to this arcade.
Oh man,
That much? Damn.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's interesting that that Moment 37 kind of got you into Street Fighter. It's interesting because you were the one that commentated Moment 38. Right, with Justin Wong. So there's going to be a moment where that
Came
moment,
full circle.
yeah, I'm sure that moment has inspired a lot of people to get into Street Fighter as well. But of course, it was Third Strike. The parry mechanic is always super hype when people can really flex their stuff like that. And so, I guess you were. I mean, obviously, you're a commentator now, but you've been a player for a while before you got into commentary. I think I remember, Kevin,
right.
you were mentioning you go back
Back in
the Street Fighter 4 days. You guys
I think
met
it
each
was-
other maybe at some WNFs or
yeah, end of 4, start of 5. I think when I used to go to Wednesday night fights, just to compete, Vicious would be there, so we had to chat. We played some games and casuals and stuff
yeah.
like that.
Were you mostly playing
Yeah.
during? I'm guessing you were mostly playing during that time, but it seems like it's the Street Fighter 5 era where people started seeing you commentate. But I'm sure you were commentating before then. Is there like a story of your transition from going from player to commentary? Was it a natural thing, or was there a moment where it kind of happened?
I think it's a medley of both, or like a combination of all of those things that you had just mentioned. To kind of break it down, I was very, very active in Street Fighter 4 because during my timeline of learning Third Strike, I felt like I missed the competitive scene. I missed like the point where I could actually enter tournaments and try to qualify because I was a little bit too young. So by the time Street Fighter 4 came out, 2009, I was in the mindset of like, okay, I missed my era with Third Strike. This is the opportunity to go competitive, make my name out there, try to grind out to be the best of the best. I played the hell out of this game, right? Like day in, day out, 8 hours a day. There's so many personal things that go into it. Like I skipped a year of school. I skipped out on like a full-time job. I left a relationship, etc., to like really pursue. I don't know what it was, but like there's something about like the community that got me. There's something about the competitive drive that got me. And there's something about the game and the nature of fighting games that got me. Right? So all of those things just kind of really pushed me to be mad competitive into 4. Transitioning that over into like, actually before even the transition to 5, towards the end of 4, there was a moment where I started TOing at my local every single week at UGC in Van Nuys. I would also put up the streams for it and commentate on there for Street Fighter 4, do the whole thing, right? Because I was just so in love with all of those aspects of putting on a tournament, putting on a show for everybody, and making sure people have a place to play that they can call home, because that's what got me into it in the first place, right? So transitioning over into Street Fighter 5, I still kind of wanted to be a pro, but finances were mad hard, and I'm like, yo, like I think my time right now is kind of like a little bit of a toss-up. So that's when I kind of pumped the brakes on the competitive aspect. I think that was the moment like where I finally graduated, got a full-time job as an accountant, etc. But I was still playing the game, right? You could never really leave something you love. And that's how I felt with Street Fighter 5. I think there was a moment, though, where I had to come to a decision. It was like, okay, I cannot dedicate like 6 to 8 hours a day playing Street Fighter 5. I will play like a tad bit, go to like Wednesday night fights, and I would still pull off like top 16s, top 8s, even top 3s. I'm like, okay, I'm still kind of nice. I'm okay.
I remember
But
this too.
there came a point.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There comes a point where like I just didn't want to be like a pro Street Fighter 5 player. I was just like, you know what? I still enjoy the hell out of this game, and I want to just kind of like talk about it with somebody. And the first person that kind of influenced me towards that decision was Sejam. Because like I was kind of iffy. Like I would hold my stick and I would see him. I'm like, yo, how come you're not playing? I know you're nice at the game. He's like, no, I'm chilling. I'm just, just kind of watching. And I'm like, if I get eliminated early, I don't know if I should just like bounce or not, or just like meet you up on another day, because we were really close, right? And he's like, well, screw it. Why don't you just hop on the mic when you're done or when you get eliminated? I'm like, word? Like, just gonna let me do that? Like, I'll ask Valle. Yeah, I mean, I'm down. And pretty much the rest is history. Like, I enjoyed it so much because I was able to do it with a friend. And I was also in a community that I adored so much, right? Especially in the Southern California scene. It just happened to be like a perfect way for things to just fall in place. And I just like ran with it.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting story because of course Stage Jam has made a lot of strides in commentary as well, and so this getting into commentary is something where there's a lot of people that want to do it, of course, and I think there's some misconceptions with people just thinking it's just you just go up on the mic and it's just
people
just
think
start
it's just talking
or
right?
whatever.
Yeah.
But obviously there's like a craft. I do want to get into the craft aspect a little bit later, but I guess like when you get into the commentary and you're doing it at your locals and maybe you feel like you have a knack for it, there must come a moment where you're thinking, oh, I think I could just keep doing this and I can I can make this into a regular thing, right? And there must be, I mean, I assume you don't just get into like Evo Top 8 or, Capcom Cup finals commentary just super quickly. But it seemed like I think you did the first Street Fighter 5 Capcom Cup.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it kind of your commentary career developed pretty quickly, it seems. Or am I ignoring some of the pain struggles that that have been behind the scenes? How do you feel about the career? Yeah.
I'm gonna say they put a giant leap of faith on putting me on the roster. I'll tell you what, man. So here's what I was thinking. I was like, damn, yo, like, let me see this roster again. Wait, this is gonna be held in LA? Are you sure? Like, you guys want me on here? I was definitely in some sort of like weird kind of like mentality where I was like, are you guys sure? Like, I fit the bill for all of this stuff? But it was weird because like that particular year was like, I got Evo, I got one of the some of the Red Bull joints that they were putting on throughout the country, and then Capcom Cup, and I'm like, yo, what is going on? Like, I personally thought like maybe it was a thing where they were trying to put like more talent out there to really kind of like focus in on like commentary and really try to like expand their reach in terms of like trying to go esports and try to make it like a more fine-tuned presentation, right, with their product. And so they were like, you know what? I don't know how many people we can have or we can fly out here, but we could probably take a chance on this guy, or who knows. I genuinely still don't know the answer as to why I got picked, but as soon as I did, I had to think to myself, it's like, all right, everything I've done up until this point has to be cleaner, right? Like all the Wednesday night fights, all of the prep I've done for Evo, all of the Red Bull stuff, it has to be cleaner, right? That was like the only thing I was thinking about, because to be quite honest with you, the transition from doing a local every single week to hitting up the biggest stage for Street Fighter was lost to me. I was like, I don't even know how I got hired. Genuinely, it was definitely some imposter syndrome type thing.
Oh yeah, no, it's super interesting because I always seen you as a commentator that really knows the line between being real and being professional, right? There's kind of like there's the commentary that you do at your locals, which kind of anything goes, and then there's like the biggest stage, and obviously the vibes are a little bit different, and you don't want to go too much in either direction, but do you have any thoughts on kind of riding that line, or any tips for anybody trying to get into this commentary craft? Because I think that's one of the things where people, this is where the professionalism starts to come in, and that's something I don't know. There's no school for it, right? You just kind of went in. It seems like a lot of it's intuition. How do you approach that kind of stuff?
So I'm glad you talked about like the intuition and trying to find that balance, because there was a lot of moments where I felt lost in the first 2 to 3 years of my commentary, and I've made this publicly known too on like tweets. I've talked about it a few times with like my colleagues. One of the biggest things was doing the research for me, because I can't rely on anybody else to be like, yo, like, how do I make it sound like more authentic? Like, I feel like I'm not getting across to anybody as authentic, which is one of the big points of criticism that I received in my first couple of years on commentary. I cannot emphasize how often I would go to certain Reddit threads and be like, this guy is like the Walmart version of X, or like,
Oh no.
you know what I'm saying?
The
You know,
comparisons
I'm not gonna
come
say
down.
of who, right? So I was just, man, that affected me big time. But a lot of the times I would listen to like other commentators. I would listen to Yipes. I would listen to Tasty Steve. I would listen to Sajam. It wasn't to necessarily like copy them, but I'm thinking about it. I'm like, how are they so in the zone to express themselves the way that I would normally hear them as like a friend? And then how do they pull it back into, oh, this is like the professional side. Like, oh, this is like him cleaning it up, him tightening up what needs to be product available or like product ready, right? Or project, how want to say this? Presentable for a product. Is what it is, right? And yeah, so a lot of it was just research. A lot of it was just taking time to write down notes and watching endless VODs and practicing. I would practice at home, record myself. I'm like, man, I sound like a goober, or I don't sound like the way I want to present myself.
Yeah.
And there would be moments where it's too late, where I have to do a show, and I'm like, well, we got to run with what we got on our notes. And I would just watch those VODs. I'm like, dude, how can I put my personality out there? Like, when do I find those moments? But eventually it all came together. I think like year 4 and onward, I found moments where I was really comfortable in expressing myself during the gameplay and setting up the stories. And then like everywhere in between, like if you ever have seen like a run of show for like for any sort of like big event, it goes like, you know, you would see the intro. It's like, hey, welcome to so-and-so. We're here with the biggest tournament of your life, brought to you by et cetera, et cetera. Like those parts I know for sure. It's like, okay, I could keep this clean. I could keep it the way that it's presentable for somebody and they're accepting of it, so the clients are happy. And then where do I would highlight it. Where do I find the parts where I get to rock, right? Yeah. Where do I find the parts where I could let myself go? Or as Ringe talks about this all the time, Yipes talks about this all the time. I don't know if this is going to be proper. Feel free to edit it out. But you got to find the time to let your nuts hang.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's the most important thing. Like find the moments, find the key pockets in the run of show, in like the commentary space where you could let your nuts hang so that you could be as authentic as possible. And if let's say it's not to the taste of someone else, at least you could say you put out your full effort, right? And that's the kind of mentality that I've had with it. And eventually I found my own voice, so to speak. I found my own groove, and it's allowed me to gel with a lot of different commentators at a very easy pace and very quickly, actually.
Yeah.
That's very respectable, because in any line of professionalism, you do have to kind of, find that control, right? You got to kind of know the right timing, the right adjustments.
Exactly.
Because I'll be very honest, like back in Street Fighter 4 days, you'll agree, like it was ruthless. Street Fighter 4 is like, that's when it kind of like started, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure some people also kind of, the smart people would have, okay, this is like gonna be a big thing in the future. Like I foresee the path. I'm gonna, keep it professional. Whereas I don't know, I can't really pick out who actually thought about those. But then I guess the people who are still currently being a commentator nowadays and back in the day as well.
Yeah.
But I could say most of the time when you open the streams, even streams were a thing back in the day, right? So everybody was so ruthless. It was funny. It was entertaining.
Oh, yeah,
but it was nothing in the lines of, I gotta keep the clients happy. There's nothing like that. It's like, if I'm having fun, everybody's having fun, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But of course, it kind of now it's all polished. It's now an actual like craft or like work. People deem it as work, professionalism, and it is kind of finding its path to.
That's because it's
career.
finally become a profession, right? That's why professionalism became a thing, because it's now a profession where, in the early Street Fighter 4 days, it seemed like it's just, it was kind of like a Wild West.
You were having fun.
Yeah, people were just kind of having
that was
fun.
the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a free-for-all. And so it's interesting seeing, the FGC kind of go from that and then having to go towards a more professional route, but then keeping its identity and trying to find that right balance. I feel like the best commentators have all kind of found that, right? Because and I guess like of course you probably knew that we're gonna bring this up, but you are in Street Fighter 6 officially as a commentator voice. I'm sure you've been asked about this many times, but I mean that's a huge deal, because it's not like there's like a ton of people that are able to do that, right? I mean, like if you look at like StarCraft, you have Nick and Dan taste hostess in the game, and it's kind of to have the commentators in the game, to be a commentator that's in the game is almost like you're kind of you are now part of the product, quite literally, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, how did that come about? And obviously that must have been like a huge honor to be able to, big milestone, right? How did that come about? And I guess, what was it like to do commentary recording?
Yeah.
I guess
where you literally have to appease the clients, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean,
right?
but not just that, but the process aspect. It's I think I saw on I think Jeremy did an AMA on our Street Fighter, and he mentioned something like there's like 10,000 plus lines or something like that, which must have been exhausting. Yeah. What that whole process? What was that like, from getting chosen to do this to the process and the reaction afterwards?
Okay, this is a long one to unpack, but I'll try my best to kind of keep it. If I stray off subject, please feel free to stop me a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, first and foremost, never in my life did I think I would get a phone call or an email regarding Street Fighter 6. Actually, the very first time I got into contact about like Street Fighter 6, I didn't even get a whiff of what the project was. What it was a very straightforward email. They're like, "Hey, we need to have a meeting with you on this date. Are you available?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I can do that." The first thing that came to my mind was like, "Oh shit, did I like mess up on commentary somehow?" Because they did not say a damn thing. Like it was right after a gig too, and they were just like, "Hey, we need to have you in a meeting." Yeah. Verbatim, "We need to have you in a meeting." I'm like,
okay.
Oh shit.
We need to talk. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, that was the actual email. And I'm like, I don't know what this means. So I kid you not, I text like a bunch of people. I'm like, I text Tasty Steve first and foremost. I'm like, yo, hey,
what is this about?
Did you get an email from whatever? And he was like, nah, I didn't get anything. What happened? I'm like, bro, I think I did something wrong. Can you check this out for me? And he's like, dude, don't worry about it. Just go in. So I went in there, and then they talked to me about commentary. So they started off with commentary. Like we listened to how you've been commentating this and that. So I'm like, oh shit, this is no good. Like in the back of my mind, I'm like sweating bullets. And then they were like, you've been doing it for a long time. How would you like to continue on with the next project? I'm like, dude, I would totally be down. I would love to do more of the CPT, etc. They're like, no, we don't mean like CPT. I'm like, are you guys firing me? What does this mean?
They're like, you're back at your locals.
No, we mean, we would like to show you what we mean. And then they showed me a clip and a demo of Aru doing his lines in the game. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. And then freaking in the same call, Tasty Steve shows up afterwards, and I'm like, "You mother! Like, how
he knew this all along.
What is this, bro? I don't know if he knew already, but he definitely hopped in the call, and he was just like, "Yo, yo, what is this?" And so, long story short, that was the first time I caught whiff of anything like that. That's the moment they were just like, "You know what? We would love to have you guys be the first commentators for this project. Right? It's never been done before. We would love to have you do this." And kind of harping on what Kevin was saying earlier about like trying to appease the client and trying to be like product ready. Funny enough, when it came down to actually voicing out the lines and then writing some of the lines as well, like they gave us a ton. They gave us a giant ass spreadsheet to go through for like months. But there was a caveat. I told them, I was like, hey man, there are certain things that I feel like are not expressed in the way that I would like to express them. If you've ever seen like this moment happen in gameplay, it would kind of like sound a little bit more loose or a little bit more exciting depending on the situation. So I asked them, I was like, would it be all right if I had a little bit more like a few more liberties to be creative, to be expressive?
Right.
And they said, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because we hired you for your voice. We want you to make it as accurate as possible to how you would want to or how comfortable you would be on the mic doing it as if it were a CPT. And I'm like, you know what? That's perfect. So they let me adjust a good amount of the lines. I swear to you, the stop and bop was not my idea. I feel like that's that one or the Philly cheesesteak line. I promise you that was
I know
not
the
my
Philly
idea.
Classic.
cheesesteak line.
Yeah.
I I swear to God, at the moment, I'm like, I don't know how to adjust this. Like, I don't know how to fix this, so I'll just roll with it. But, yeah, to put that all together, they gave me a lot of creative liberties with the commentary lines. It was multiple months of recording on like sometimes 2 weeks straight.
Wow.
Sometimes like they would adjust it according to our schedule.
Yeah.
So there was definitely a lot to do with this project. There was a lot of lines. There was a lot of like back and forth with the audio and the audio director and also the localization director over at Capcom to ensure that we were all on the same page. And funny enough, man, these guys, they've listened to like a lot of how we've commentated over the years. They're like, you know what? That's actually perfect. We want it that way. We would do multiple takes too for every line. We'd do like 4 takes, right? We'd do like an esports version. We'd do like a straight up version. We'll do like the way that I would want to do it 2 times over. And then they would always pick my version. I'm like, thank God that I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what? That's great. We'll take that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was majority of like the project. It was like months long and it was pretty arduous, but it was so much fun. You couldn't even tell like I was in the booth for like 4 hours, 5 hours at a time. And then the announcement happened, right? Like the official announcement where they put out like the, hey, there's a new feature. Here's the commentary feature. And they put out our faces in like digital form and stuff.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I was at work when it happened. I was working at Esports Engine at the time as an associate producer. And in the middle of like one of the meetings that I had, somebody was like texting me. A bunch of people were texting me. They're like, what the hell is this? And I saw the link and I had to like get out of the meeting for a bit because I cried. I was like, holy shit.
Nice.
This is wild. I legit cried. I'm like, damn, this is actually insane. So even to this day, like when I think about being in the game of Street Fighter, I don't know how to take it, right? Like I know it's amazing. I know it's like a life-changing thing. And I know for sure it's something that my goals would have never like even thought about reaching, right? I have like my own like set list of goals. I'm like, I never thought about being in a video game, let alone Street Fighter.
Yeah.
So it's like, I was very, very emotional. And at the same time, it's like when you're set to do a task, you're set to do a job, you prepare for it as much as possible, you execute it, then it's on to the next one, right? I never thought of this having any like any emotional residuals to it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very touching thing, but I never know how to really accept it. I'm just like, is this still a dream? Like, is this real? Right? That's where I'm at mostly. I call Tasty Steve every so often. I'm like, yo, we're in a fucking video game, dude.
Yeah.
Like, straight up. And he's like, yo. Yeah, so that's you know how Tasty Steve is, right?
Yeah.
When it hits him, he's
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
yo.
Yo. Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what it is right now, like especially with like how I approach it.
Yeah, I guess like this is something that Kevin and I talked about. We kind of had like an idea for like a fun like a tournament stream where you would have like you would simulate like an
actual
Evo finals
offline big stage thing.
finals. Yeah, because you can hear the commentators on the stage. The players can, assuming that they don't have their headphones on or whatever.
But at least have it like feel like they're at an offline event.
So like I mean, this is kind of typically like it's kind of a novelty feature, of course. Like I think most players probably aren't turning on the commentary, but I'm sure there are people who find it fun to do so, and when they're playing by themselves or with friends, I guess.
Just
too.
casually.
But the thing is, like
I wanted to have a purpose. I wanted to have a more. Well, it's in the game, right? It's a feature in the game. Why don't we utilize it, kind of thing?
Yeah.
And my initial thoughts were, especially targeted towards FGC who aren't English-speaking backgrounds, right? When they go to like an international tournament, they're gonna hear a lot of different languages. And especially if they get randomly picked out to be like on the stage, or like the TOs say, "Oh, you guys are gonna play on stream next. Get ready," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like a big moment for them. Like they wanna some people wanna actually show up and be funny or entertaining or actually like show up their Street Fighter skills.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, international like players outside of the NA or the non-English speaking players don't really usually even get to be in the event at all. So why don't we try to do something where we can simulate, we can have the commentaries turned on when they're playing, which for sure some people say it can be distracting, but at the same time the novelty feature literally is that these people are gonna commentate your match in a different language
Yeah.
for you,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be
Right.
special. So
Yeah.
we thought of an idea like that. It's gonna
Yeah,
take time to materialize, but
it's kind of, it does sound kind of weird, but I do have a story. When I when I was in college, I was playing classical guitar, and I had like a course for it and everything, and I had a teacher, and in order to simulate the concert hall, he would in the classroom he would lower the temperature to a little bit colder temperature, so that
Right.
when you're so it can simulate a concert hall experience when you're performing, right? So you would have to be in a colder, and I was like, why does it always have to be so cold? And he explained it. I'm like, oh, okay, like this is a
Yeah.
real thing, and it's serious. But
Makes sense, yeah.
I wonder if like there's any kind of like super like very serious training like that going on in the FGC, because a lot of these players are playing online, in the
Yeah.
comfort of their own home. They have
They
their
can just
own
be on their underwear and stuff.
yeah, they can be in
nobody's
their
gonna
underwear
know.
and stuff. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, when you're playing in a tournament, it's a completely different experience, right? So
Speaking of
yeah.
temperature, like Evo venues and many big events are actually generally colder than the outside temperature. So that
Yeah.
makes sense too, right? So
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if anyone's actually done an extensive training of
That's
wear your
hardcore.
full esports gear and like be in a cold room or something like that. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
gonna be a thing, but like, yeah.
I feel like that's too much, man. I think
Yeah.
the person that's like the most connected to that right now in like at least the Street Fighter space is the way like Noah the Prodigy plays, because he
Yeah.
would play with his like he'd be in like basketball shorts,
Yeah.
socks and flip flops, right, or like
Yeah.
sandals, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And he would just take off his sandals and just play in his socks, right? He's like the most attuned to that. But then there's like people like Oil King too, who would always play in
Yes.
shorts. I don't know if it was like a fashion statement thing or if it was something that made him comfortable.
Yeah,
but it
that's
made
actually a
him
good
very
question.
infamous for a few
Yeah.
years, right?
Yeah.
So there has to be some sort of correlation here where they're like they play a certain way at home and like that's how they want to prepare themselves for like the big leagues or something. I just
Yeah.
hope that in the colder environments, I'm like, yo, this definitely affects a lot of people.
But in relation to that, yes, I hope and wonder if anyone's ever turned on your voice in the game that actually helps them. That would be a cool thing, right? It's like, oh, it's so empty without anyone talking on my game. I want Vicious to be like getting hype with me when I do combos. That would be a cool thing. So,
There are a few that have come up to me at last year's Evo Japan that say they have my commentary on. They would pull out like
Ooh.
Google Translate and they say commentary is on, and then they would show me. They're like, I use your commentary to practice my English,
Oh,
or
that's
I
cool.
use your commentary to pretend I'm in CPT. There's a lot of folks that have come up to me like that in Japan, and after people started getting used to it, people started to turn it on throughout like season 1.5, season 2. They're like, yo, like I started really kind of like listening to what you were saying, and it's like you say a lot of specific things just based off of like the actions taken. There's like certain like niche interactions in the game that happen, and you have a line for that. That's crazy to me.
yeah.
And so when they think about the commentary line, they also think about that specific interaction. They're like, oh, I remember what to do here.
yeah.
Right. So a lot of people have kind of figured out how to correlate the commentary to certain instances in the game. And when they experience that instance again, they're like, okay, I'm ready for it this time. So I
Yeah.
think some people have kind of gotten used to it. A lot of people kind of did it as a joke, and I get it. They're like, I just want to listen to it. This is kind of weird. That's fine. And then people started to see the value in it. I'm like, oh, like I personally was like kind of like low-key kind of like shy about it or embarrassed. I'm just like, I don't know how to feel about this yet, guys. Like, I think it's great. Like I thought it was cool that they hired me to do that, but like, where's the application here? Like I
Yeah.
personally don't know. But there was a really funny thing that came out from like the Street Fighter side, the Capcom Fighters Twitter. They were talking about like their milestones over the course of like the release of Street Fighter 6, what's been happening in their like DLC, what's been happening with their viewership, etc. On June 2nd, 2024, the commentator stuff, all of that was played out 947 million times around the world.
Wow.
When I was told that number and there was a graphic for it,
Yeah.
there was a full-on graphic for it.
Wow.
And they plastered my face all over it. I don't know why, but they did. And there was a giant number. It said, number of matches called by your favorite commentator 947 million times. To be specific, it's
Wow.
947,168,907.
Infographic they showed, right? Yeah,
Oh,
that was
man.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that did, okay. Well, that's interesting. I mean, obviously that's interesting for the fact that so many people have been listening to your commentary, but then also to have that kind of metric too, right? It's like I guess they have the
That's
metrics
wild
on
to me.
everything. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I be honest with you, gentlemen? I
Go
want
for
to
it.
ask you both. Like, okay, so when you started up the game, like
Yep.
you went straight into versus mode, was commentary on by default?
It was.
Was that on by default?
Yes.
Okay, so here's
I remember
my
this.
theory. Here's my theory as to why that was played so many times. I think people
Oh,
didn't know how to turn it off.
I get it. I get it.
I
I
think
get
people
it.
did not know how to turn it off.
Oh, I
I'm gonna
see.
be real honest.
Okay.
No, but it's not a bad thing. It's
I mean,
pretty cool.
in
yeah.
Street
I
Fighter
know, I
4,
know.
in Street Fighter 4, you couldn't turn it off, right? That was a
Yeah, you
that was
remember
one
that-
of the things about
that-
Street
the
Fighter 4.
announcer?
Yeah. I mean, like it's I mean, it's way cooler to have real commentators than those announcers. I know some people kind of like got used to the announcers, but remember it was like the vanilla
Yeah.
Street Fighter 4 announcer was like, "Whoa, that
Dude.
was a really wild play."
All I
then
did was a jump in heavy punch.
yeah, and then like and then the next guy was like really aggressive sounding, and like they made him like have lower
a bit more
tone voice.
older gentleman. Yeah.
They lost the sound file from like the first announcer guy to the second one. I'm like,
What the
dude, the
heck?
first one was sick.
I like
Oh,
this
man.
first
Yeah,
guy.
man.
He was more of a chill guy kind of voice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, it's definitely
Yeah.
more announcery. The other one was like more like the aggro and
Yeah.
but,
like a grown up.
yeah, but it's funny how like you play so many matches, you tune that out of your head. Like I don't even
just
like
became natural.
Yeah, and then
Right.
when people come in like watching you play Street Fighter 4 like with a friend or whatever, like who doesn't really like watch fighting games usually, they comment on like the oh there's an announcer in the game and like and they think it's funny or whatever. But when you've been playing the game so much,
You
just
don't even
tune
notice.
that out.
Yeah.
Because you can't turn it off, right? But no,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. I kind of want to move on to a bit about the craft of commentary because this is something very interesting to me, and I made a video about it as well. And so I guess like there's a lot of things that you have to kind of balance. And I kind of want to pick your brain on approaches to this. Obviously, one of the things about commentary is bias, right? On some level, like if you're too heavily invested in one player and you want them to win, it'll come out. But it's also hard to stay balanced when you're really invested in the game and the player. We're all human. So what are your thoughts on trying to keep your commentary balanced, or do you think that there are times where you absolutely can be biased, and you just have to find the right moments? What are your thoughts on that?
I think I have a pretty strong opinion towards like bias in terms of like commentary. I don't think there's ever a moment where you should only highlight a certain player. Even if you know like the ins and out of him, let's say he's your best friend, you're related to him, etc. There's no reason why you shouldn't share the spotlight with the other person there, because they did just as good of a job to get there, or I
Yeah.
mean they put up just as much of an effort to be there in that exact seat, so they deserve the exact same attention. So I think about it that way. It's very unfair for any bias to come out, like even if they are like a fan favorite, etc. Like if there's a person who is completely unknown and he just so happens to face off against like the best in the world, let's say like I have a really good example here that I did last Evo during Street Fighter 6. Punk was in pool play against someone named TJ, and it came down to the very, very last game. And TJ was a complete unknown. You might
Yeah.
have seen him if you paid attention to like early Street Fighter SoCal scenes or whatever, but nobody knew who he was. But if you look at the commentary between like myself and the my co-commentator at the time, we made it very, very evenly balanced. Although I knew a lot more about TJ at the time
I see.
than I did about Punk. Reason being is because I helped put the local together that he plays at. I know that he is a very, very strong JP with a pocket bison.
Right.
I know for sure that he's had practice against Cammy and etc. That's why he brought it to the very, very last game. So I was just like, damn, how can I really like hit this home, right, without sounding too biased? I had to make sure that all of his effort reflected into the gameplay gets shown off, and I want to see what Punk had to do to answer that. I want to make sure that both partners in the dance are showing off like their strong suits and being able to highlight those and point those out and let the audience know that those are the strong suits. I think it's really, really cool to see like how those interactions happen between like player to player, right?
Yeah.
Because if you only focus on one person, you're missing everything else that's like cool about fighting games. It's
Yeah.
always like the interactions that happened mostly in these high profile sets, right?
Yeah,
Or even like having somebody that's like playing a character that you might be a fan of, right? There's always something to really talk about on both ends of the street, right? If you're
Yeah.
gonna cross the street and you're only looking one way, you're gonna die, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that, yeah, it's just like for me personally, I just want to make sure that like a lot of the times both players do get their spotlight. And I think it's very easy to kind of figure out how to go about it. It's like somebody could have like immense offense, right? You could kind of see that going. You could also talk about the other player, like, oh, like what other defensive aspects can this person have to kind of like survive that or whatever? Or like what were they thinking to kind of get themselves out of situations? You could kind of pose it that way. It's like, what can this Bison player do after getting bodied by Punk or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Or what can this Bison player do that he's done before to kind of show off his prowess here or whatever, right? There's like a lot of conversation that can go around that as well.
Yeah, and no, that's really interesting. I mean, obviously, you can't just have commentary about the player that's like the most famous, or I mean, it takes two to tango in Street Fighter and fighting games in general. And but another aspect of commentary that's always you see in debate that come from time to time is kind of about player choices, right? Sometimes if a player does something questionable, or you're trying to get into the mind of the player, but then at the same time you can't mind read, and then so you kind of have to be you have to make some assumptions sometimes, but you can't just always be 100% sure about every single interaction.
Is sometimes I see some players either talk in social media or among like the friend groups. Oh man, this guy commentated my match and he thought I was gonna do this, but I was actually doing something else. So this commentator has no idea what he's talking about. That kind of things can happen, which is a realistic.
I mean,
thing.
I imagine there's some times where you can also raise the question like, oh, I wasn't exactly sure what he was trying. Maybe it was a misinput or something like that. But is there? Do you have a certain approach to that? Strong opinions or
or your best takes on like how to fix those.
I think it's a fair opinion. And as you were saying, Gerald, to kind of like branch off of that, I think it's really important to note that, one, it's okay to be wrong, but at the same time, don't talk as if everything you say is like 100% correct. It has to be open-ended because you yourself are not in that situation at that given time frame. Even if it's perceived as correct, the player, if you talk to them, sometimes they'll give you a completely different answer. They could have been like, oh, I just tried to do something, or like I tried to do something else and that came out, which does happen. Right. Yeah. So my mentality behind it is like, if it's something for sure is like tried and true 100%, like a basic thing, a basic understanding, like a universal understanding of an interaction that is true, then by all means say it with your chest. But everything else, like when you observe it, like try to state at least what the characters are doing, not necessarily trying to talk about the full intention with 100% certainty. Because there are moments where, as you had said, Kevin, there's moments where players will be like, no, I actually tried to option select this, or I did this as a read to see if they would respond maybe with like a delayed parry or something, right? That happens a lot. So I think what's cool about the commentary aspect, it's okay to highlight that moment, put emphasis on it, and then when it comes to like the segment where it's a replay or there's downtime in between players, then you talk about the open-endedness, right? Then you talk about like, let's talk about what happened in round 3 where he delayed his normal. Like, why did he decide to do that when he had him in a burnout? They had 0 bars. Like, why did you even think about that? Then it's like, oh, this is a Zangief player. By the way, if they tried to drive impact me and it's a kick animation, they could do their Thunderstorm, whatever that command grab is called. Thunderstorm. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty important. I would have never thought about that, right? So I think in my opinion, the way to go about that is to highlight the moment without necessarily trying to like, I guess, imply that what the players are thinking. I think just talking about the situation itself, leaving it open-ended, then moving on because of how fast-paced everything is okay. I think it's appropriate. Your job isn't necessarily to be right 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Your goal is to commentate, to talk about, like, the way I approach it is I want to be able to explain something so that if they're not watching the game and they're just listening to it, they're like on the way, like walking somewhere and they can't pay attention to it, or they have like if you were to drive home from work and you turn on like the radio station to listen to a basketball game, I want it to equate to that.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Yeah, it's when you, of course, that was kind of, in the past where listening to baseball games and listening to
Right.
the commentator was kind of the entire experience. Because I don't know if people still do that with
On the radios and
yeah,
stuff.
listening to entire games on the radio. But like, yeah, if you're like a commentator, the role of the commentator becomes that much more
Yeah.
important.
And they will feel the weight of the responsibility too, right? So that they know that they got a job to kind of deliver the visuals into your voice to just pass the message.
That's really interesting because I guess that kind of commentary in gaming, in esports and competitive gaming it's never. I never even thought about like what about like just listening to the commentary for Evo Top 8. Like, would you be able to kind of follow?
Practice or a training regime too. And imagine if you had to explain this to an audience who does not have the video for whatever reason. Maybe the capture card died or something. Now the only option is you're still live on air.
Yeah,
and you have to explain everything in terms of your voice and your tone and everything. So it's gonna be it'll never be a realistic thing if you think about it. But I mean, if it does happen, it could be a good training to pick the right words and the situations.
Yeah, but see, so what's
Yeah.
kind of interesting about that is, as Jeremy was mentioning, there's in fighting games it's so fast paced. So many things can happen in a small block of time where you just can't like.
There's no free
keep up
time
with
to
it.
explain things. Yeah,
And so like in moment 38, this was at Evo during the third strike when that was main stage tournament, and Hayao was did his like air parry, and then that sequence is crazy, right?
Yeah,
he did the air parry on the EX Tatsu, right? And then when he was landing, it was air to air parry, and as he was landing, he did the body splat and did a combo, and then on the wake up. I think it was
just 10
he didn't
kick,
die. Yeah.
It was
Wake up. He did
the roundhouse. Yeah.
He did the roundhouse to get over the wake up super.
Yeah.
And then punished with like EX clothesline.
The lariat.
Yeah, EX lariat, and there's so much stuff going on there, and like you can't, it's like I guess you have to kind of wait till the end, but then it's kind of you have the hype. You're mixing hype with like commentary.
Yeah.
And I guess, but hype is part of the
finding
commentary.
the right spot to do the explanation if it's required, right?
Yeah.
So you're doing split second this. You're playing fighting games as you're commentating. The strategy in your head, like how do I allocate all this, right?
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a big kind of process to go through.
Yeah.
Too,
What's your approach on that, and how do you
priorities and all that stuff?
Yeah. Funny enough, I had watched a few replays of that. And I think TK Breezy also had done a little breakdown of some of the more hype moments that have happened throughout like the course of 2024. And one of the big things that he highlighted, and something that I also like to emphasize, is if the moment is hype, right? If it's a crazy moment, let the emotions rock. Make sure to like kind of read the room a little bit. Let the audience kind of like bask in it. Let the people who are watching at home kind of bask in it for the moment. Don't let that moment be taken away by an explanation. Just let it rock for a little bit, and then slowly, subtly start to put in a couple of those words of like talking about what just happened. Yeah. Right? You could put in the oohs and ahs in the beginning, like, oh my God. Yeah. And eventually, if you watch it back, eventually, Justin, he pumps the brakes after the celebration is over. He's like, that is a worthless button.
Yeah. His timing was immaculate.
Button, and let me tell you why. Right?
Yeah.
And then we mentioned like what happened afterwards. So we make sure to emphasize the moment, the players, and the emotions from the crowd too. Funny enough, there's a moment just like that that happened over at Capcom Cup between myself and Ringe. I think it was the moment where Blas made it into grand finals.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Blas had a single hit that would lead into a combo that would kill. Ringe knew it. I knew it. The crowd knew it. Right. As soon as Blas made that hit, we didn't need to talk about the exact sequencing. Ringe set it up perfectly. He's like, Blas, he lands the hit. He goes for the conversion, something. Guess what, kid? You're in grand finals, right? And then the big pop-off happens. The KO happens at the same time. It was perfectly timed for Ringe. The crowd erupts in emotion. And I'm sitting there like, this is it right here. Like, I'm going to wait. If you watch that video back, I'm just waiting in silence. Not in silence, but I'm holding myself back just to listen to the crowd and really bask in it. And then I bring it back. Yeah. Right? So there are moments that you have to identify when to really harp in on what the details are and when they'll let the highlights rock.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
awareness definitely plays a big part, I
Yeah,
think.
it's like fighting games, timing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so that's yeah, Blaz was I was there at Capcom Cup this past 111, and yeah, Blaz is he's like 15.
Yeah.
And
young
his
talent.
The kid's
his
a monster,
mental
man.
his mental composure is like incredible because like through most of the matches, like I was filming some stuff, and when you're filming like players and you're waiting for pop-offs and stuff, you have to focus on your camera on the player. You can't be watching the game at the same time. That's not professional, right?
Yeah.
So it what was interesting about Blaz was for so many of the moments where he's about to win, that's when you get the camera rolling just in case they do a pop-off. I didn't know if he won or not for most of the matches.
If the players have like little to no emotion on their face.
It's like so
yeah.
he had so he would stop playing after the KO, and then he'd go and fist bump the player, and I'd be like, wait a minute, did he win or lose?
Right.
And like, and of course it turned out he was winning almost all the time, and I was like, man, this player, like, you have that kind of composure when the person filming you doesn't know if you won or not after the match, and and he's 15 too, like me, I'm like, someone gets a jump in on me and I'm just like freaking out. This guy's like at the very highest levels of Capcom Cup. He's 15. No, Blaz is crazy.
He's nuts, yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, so you've been doing commentary at a high level for a very long time in Street Fighter, and you've been, I think most commentators of this generation have been there for the Street Fighter 4 kind of more small scale local level commentary. I mean, you might be doing some these days. I don't know if you go to your locals and do commentary nowadays, but
yeah. Of course.
I mean, it's you're always. There's a huge range of stuff that's going on, and I imagine there's some crazy stories that you must have doing commentary in the local space, but then also at the highest levels. I don't know. Do you have any stories that you can share that won't be too incriminating?
This is where I use my voice changer, and then you change it to anonymous.
Yeah.
The little
Gotta
FBI
blur your
relocation
face and
program after
everything.
This is going to be needed.
Yeah.
Change your voice, like.
At a local level, I don't think there's anything wild because like anything goes, right? It's so lax. Like we talked about the differences between doing like a local batch of commentary and then doing like a tier 1 commentary.